Sorry, turn the brightness down, because this is a bright review. What is up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to my channel. You guys remember one of the first big Netflix original movies called Bright with Will Smith? Of course you do. Well, this is technically set in that universe. It's an anime film called Bright Samurai Soul. Today we're going to talk about it, spoiler-free of course. Is this film better than the original, and does this work in anime form? Let's get into it. So Izou, Ronin, and Raiden and Orc work to bring a young elf girl and the wand she carries to the land of the elves in the north. So this is actually set in Japan at the end of the Shogunate period, and we follow this one-eyed samurai played by, and guess who stars in this movie? Simu Liu, aka our star of Shang-Chi. That's pretty cool. And then we have this orc named Raiden, played by Fred Mancuso, and this elf girl who has this wand, this spectacular object, and the goal here is to take her to the land of the elves in the north. And that all comes about after this very tragic beginning of this movie kind of sets her out on this path, and she essentially brings these two very different individuals together. Now, this is set in the original universe, but obviously takes place a long time prior to that. And the original Bright dealt with things like dirty cops, and there were references to racism, whereas this new movie is definitely your classic good versus evil trope. Nothing spectacular involving the plot when you look at adding in things that may take this movie in a different direction than we've ever seen before. No, we have this story about two misfits, and they're trying to protect this little girl. Your standard buddy cop plot in a very different form this time around in an anime movie, but obviously it's this samurai-type world, so thematically you're going to be handling this movie a lot differently, even though, again, the buddy cop element, well, that's very similar to what we got in the first film. Now, which one is better? I think it all comes down to what type of movie that you like, right? I thought the first Bright was a little messy in its execution. That was kind of my big issue with it. I didn't know if, the concept worked as well when you're talking about the execution. The concept was executed in a way that really brought it to life like it should have. I just feel like it was a bit of a missed opportunity. This film, very different, obviously, but we have a story that is built through the action, even though there isn't that much action in the beginning. We get quite a bit of build-up for these characters, which is important, but at the same time, I did have trouble grasping onto this story and really just getting emotionally involved like it wanted me to. And I don't know if it was the pacing of this story, and it's not a very long movie at all. I actually think the runtime is almost perfect for what it's trying to do, but I couldn't quite get connected to the plot of this movie. It could be the fact that there just wasn't all that much to it, and I knew exactly what this relationship was going to turn out like, where we were going to end up with our villainous characters who do create for this imposing force, but you also have this little girl that really came across as annoying. And I understand she's supposed to, but just a lot of screaming and yelling and come on, guys, at the beginning of the movie, to the point to where I couldn't really, get on board with the idea of protecting her all throughout. I know that sounds bad, but I'm just like, okay, they could have made her just a tiny bit less annoying, but you have these two characters from very different backgrounds, obviously, that have to come together, put aside their differences. They have a couple of conversations here and there when the film finally slows down. The action scenes were interesting, but there's something about the style. And don't get me wrong, I believe the animation in this film is, in its own way, so different that it's really cool. Now, I feel like a lot of people are going to watch this and say, well, when it comes to the detail, there's just not that much of it. Whether it be the set pieces or the backgrounds or the idea of some of these shots just feeling a bit empty. And part of that could be the fact that we're focusing on the movements of the characters. We get these sweeping camera angles, shots that almost feel like they should be in a live action movie, but they're transferred over into this animated film that makes it in turn almost feel like a video game. And not that that's a bad thing overall. I think there's something about the style here that is so different that it's interesting. I just don't know if it worked entirely for what they were going for. Part of this style took me out of it when other aspects, like some of the action scenes, were keeping me in it. You also have a score here that is extremely jazz heavy, which is just so different than what I expected. You're set in the samurai times, yet you're focusing on this type of music. Okay, that's kind of cool. Part of it doesn't really mesh with the story that they're telling, but at the same time, I was so intrigued by the score. I will say it was kind of a win for me at the end of the day. Again, you're balancing a lot of different things here, from this very different style of animation, a story that we've seen countless times, handled in a way that's not all that compelling, but I was at least intrigued by the characters, and I thought this movie, honestly, comparing it to the live-action film, did a better job with the lore than the first movie, even though it's maybe not answering as many questions or providing us with as much exposition as the first movie gave us. There's a lot that you have to do establishing a world like this, but I liked the lack of backstory for certain things because it leaves the mind open to interpretation. Essentially, it allows us to put pieces together without the movie telling us. But again, I just wish the story itself, this buddy cop story, going on this adventure, taking her to this land of the elves, I need to know down below. Again, you can tell I'm a bit conflicted on this film, but how did you feel about this movie? Were you intrigued and on board by the animation? Were you more compelled with the story than I was? Did you like these characters? If you guys enjoyed this Netflix review, be sure to drop your thumbs up down below. What would you like to see me review next on the platform? Bright Samurai Soul features an extremely distinct visual style. The story itself feels far too familiar. I'm right down the middle. I'm a 50% with this film. Again, I didn't have the worst time ever. There were just things about the story that I couldn't quite connect to, but I want to know how you feel. And which one do you like better? The first live-action movie or this anime film? Appreciate you guys for joining me. Come back very soon. Lots of reviews this week, and I'll see you later.